Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clinton Button, and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 205 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. All right, it's dark on purpose. I wanted to, show you what I do. It's the end of the day. I've been working on, pointing her face and pushing back around her head and everything. And you've got to be able to critically evaluate what you do. And I've talked about how when I turn the light off, she doesn't look as weird. Her nose doesn't look as big, right? Because the shadows are different, the values are different, okay? And so it's important that you look at your work in the full range of lighting conditions. So you can understand what it looks like. So I turned the light off. I can turn it back on if it turns on. Turned it off, but I'm done for the night. So I turn the light off. And before I go up, I took my red pencil and I started studying what doesn't look right. One of the cool things about granite is that the word I think about is crepuscular. There's animals like white-tailed deer that are crepuscular. They're active at dawn and dusk when the light is low. Not in the dark and not in the bright light, but right when the light is either coming up or going away. And so it's important to look at your stone in the different light. Now that the light is all off, the cool thing about granite is that granite, because it's all about value, and if you use a very clear granite that doesn't have figure in it, like a Georgia blue or berry gray, or very pure white marble, they don't have any figure in there to confound you. And if you do a good job carving, when the light's low, it's going to look more realistic than at any other time. It'll just have this presence. And because the rods and cones in your eyes, as you lose light, it diminishes your ability to differentiate colors, and everything goes more into values of light and dark. So with the stone, you see that. And so it's easy for me to look at her now and think that some of the stuff with her anatomy that I want to fix, I took my red pencil and marked it. I want to lower this. This should be her forearm. I want to lower it. Still got plenty of room for her elbow here, but I want to take this material off to lengthen here and lengthen here. And I also want to thin her wrist because it looks thick. And so I'm going to mark this, the way I'm doing it. And I'm going to mark her face, her head, because see now the light's coming back up, and so it's a lot brighter. The camera's, I'm ending it. But you may have to look at it in the dark. I don't know how your work is lit. If you've got a studio with lighting that you can control, if you have to do it, in the evening or whatever when it's dark. But go in and try to look at it. Put a light that's 10 or 20 feet away that gives you some bounce, maybe off the ground. If you uplight your job, let's see if this works. When we're axing something, it's very common to take the light and put it on from the top, the raking light. And I talked about doing it the opposite way, to have your raking light shine against from the wrong direction. Like if there's never gonna be light down on the ground looking up. So just curious as to what. And see, if you do this, you can see, I don't know how much of the light you can see, but it's really easy to see some of the differences. I'm gonna grab the camera. I want y'all to see this, okay? Take a look at this. Okay, I'm gonna try to use 3 hands here to hold this and put the light, see, way down low here, and shine up. You see how easy it is to see the tool marks on this stone? I mean, look at it. See if I got a chisel I can point with. I've got a big chip right there. See how the lines are crooked up here? If we run it back a little bit more, you can see that in this low spot here, I've got all kinds of wonky lines going on. You can, and then here, it's sharp, it doesn't smooth. It goes over and it goes up. I don't have a nice flow. And so you'll take your light and play with your light to really see your stone and see what it looks like. See what's rough, see what isn't, and to get an idea on some of the, both the surface treatment and how it shines light, because you're going to, I'm going to hang the camera back up so I don't drop and break my light bulb. All right, we're back up. Something that your light will tell you, okay, is it will also, if you've got a shape that creates a certain type of shadow, all right, you follow me there. You know, if it's round or the way your forearm casts a shadow, right, and the shadow's typically going to be, you know, you're going to have light down. It's going to shine on it, or so you got a shadow here. You can uplight it to evaluate shape, so you got, make sure you got enough shape and shadow on top, because you should have the right kind of contours to create the right kind of shape, so that when you look at it, it looks right. If it doesn't, fix it, okay? And so, but this is just a real easy way to kind of evaluate it, and having it in the dark to where I can turn it on or off makes a big difference. And we'll be able to get this tuned up more, come back in the morning when, you know, when it's regular working, regular light conditions. Yeah, see, now I've got enough of the clouds passed, or whatever, it's raining, and now the clouds are thinned enough, I got a lot more light in it. It's lit up between the auto balance on the camera and that it's almost, you know, fully illuminated. But use your different opportunities in order to understand what your shapes really are, okay? So there's no reason not to. And the uplighting, especially for doing your final action to tune it, you can make it perfect. And I mean fantastic perfect. You can get her hands, her skin so smooth that, and see, even if I uplight, the reason her hand looks so much better, and I've already got a little bit of wrinkle going on here in her skin, and you'll have small amounts of wrinkles like that where your skin folds up. And even if you can't see it, it's there, and you're subconsciously, you'll see it. You know, I was talking about doing colors the other day, and having 2 colors meet, and I was suggesting putting a pinstripe as a border, because if you do that, you can adjust the value, the harshness of that union, and it makes it look a lot bigger. It's really cool. I don't want to say trick, but it's something you do. But I'll end up doing this with her face and everything to really get it spot on, smooth, perfect. And you know, and I'm trying to make her pretty. And even if she's not the absolute most beautiful thing in the world, her skin will be perfect. And so there'll be details like that. And if you can do that, it makes her look believable, because, you know, even beautiful people have idiosyncrasies or flaws in their features of their anatomy, and that's what makes people intrinsic to look at different people. So as she thins up, she's going to improve a lot because she's really starting to. I can really start to see her in that stone, and so it's coming good. All right, time to go cook dinner. I'll be back in a little bit. You know, the magic video. I'll be back in the morning, and we'll start carving on her some more. I'm doing. I don't know what'll really show better. I'm trying to get into point along her nostril, along the edge, try to start to define the nose, okay? There's a couple of things to point out. It's, like I said, really, really, really sharp tools, okay? Because we're working along the flare of her nostril. Just like before, when I said I wanted to leave extra volume up in here on her, I want to leave extra volume above this nostril, okay? So if something happens and I have to tweak it a little bit and move it up, I've got material there. I don't want to immediately and cut this away above here so that nostril can only get really thin, because you end up with a nose that's really narrow. And you don't want flared nostrils, but you want nostrils, okay? As I'm working this goes back to what I talked to before about providing the stone a place to go, and how you cut it as to how it's going to cut or break. I don't want to dig a lot like this and go into this, because the possibility of fracture and that hole, all this material for the nostril popping off, is very real, okay? So I want to go towards where it's already relieved, which is to this bottom. So instead of going straight in, I may go in a little bit just to weaken it up, and then come here and push it towards that stress riser that I created. Cut this off, and then push it towards the bottom more so than anywhere else, because I want to preserve this outer material. It's real easy to pop off this nostril, okay? And if this was head-on end grain, it would split real easy, you know, because the grain's going up and down. It'll split almost the same as it'll split here, because this will split. The grain's going straight through, so this is very easy to fracture off, okay? So that's the issue. You got to be really careful and just work this in slow. I think that thinning her nose down, I'm going to work on this. This is high. I'm going to work on this more, and this will change the way her face looks a lot. You know, she's starting to thin up and starting to lose some of this bulk to where her head doesn't look as huge. And when her nose isn't this massive, droopy, big structure, she'll start coming together more and more. So I'm just going to start working this, and I've got a point right underneath, right under here, and now I'm working around this nostril to go around. Got this point here that's back over on the side, and I'm going to just keep pointing, and like I said, I'll leave it heavy above her nostril, but I'll do this, and then I'll probably go up this edge of her nose, try to define the center and the edge, and get that pretty close. And that should change the way her nose looks a lot, because this point underneath is the very bottom, so all of this material comes off. When that comes off, it's going to transform her quite a bit. So back to cut. As I'm putting points along the crown of her nose is here, and these are on where the transition is from the center to where it really goes to the side, or these points here. As I'm doing this, I've talked about imparting stress. I'm trying to go in really careful. Instead of drilling, where I'm pushing and I'm putting a lot of energy into it, with a drill, I'm taking like a half round chisel, round chisel, and I'm working it all the way in. If I'm really close to an edge, I can take a square chisel and just pair a little bit with the edge of that chisel, because even if I use a point and push it in, I'm pushing into that mass. And this is relatively small compared to like her whole head or the body of the stone. And so I don't want to damage anything here or cause any stress fractures that could be a week later. So right now I've done this side. I'm going to try to go up upper nose more towards the center and then come in over here. And I may do a little bit on her eye, but I probably should do her forehead and that first. But I want to get her nose shrunken up some. I've already got points all around the edge of her nostril and down here on the edge of her nostril to where the end of her nose is, so we can clean that up, make it look better. Now, a little bit more visual noise to point out. When you look at the model, I don't know if we can turn this, probably can't really see, but you know, just say I've got some points here, you know, she's got measles, you know, I've got points on her. And those points, a lot of them, I stayed up just a little bit, which is normal, okay? Those points on the plaster are where they are. They didn't stay up, okay? They only have a circle around them to indicate to me in shorthand how much I stayed up. Here, like this point for her, the corner of her eyebrow, right here, and this point for the corner of her nose, when I first started shooting them, they were really, really close because I was coming and taking this mass off. Remember that if this point is 1/8 of an inch high, okay, it's going to be 1/8 of an inch out, and as I approach this point, it's going to keep them in, they're going to be in different relationships. So you have to understand that if you left points a little high, they may look odd when you start shooting them, and then as you sink that, it's going to move that in and they're going to migrate away from each other, okay? That's the same principle that I talked about with when you carve two figures. You have to carve them from the outside in and leave that meat between them, because if you take what's between them out in the beginning, you're just going to shrink them and they're going to move away from each other. They'll migrate away. So you leave that material, and as we reduce these, they'll naturally, you know, the eyebrow will migrate away from that corner of her nose and it'll look a lot better. Okay, so trust the process. It's a really key point. As I'm working on this and the light's changing in the afternoon, I thought I should bring up, go back and visit what I said about the uplighting and how it really, it's very revealing. I don't know what the best word for it. It really makes your job look different. It's critically important when you're doing something. And I don't care if it's stone, I don't care if it's bronze, I don't care what it is. If you've got a public feature that's going out there and it's going to be lit by spotlights that are down on the ground, you have to take care of everything like I showed you with the light shining up on it and smooth all that off. There's a lot of statues out there, and I mean a lot of them, that you can go look at during the day and they look fine. And you go look at them at night with those floodlights on them that are down on the ground pointing up at it, and they look like crap, okay? That's why. They weren't finished with the perspective or the intent that they were going to be viewed from underneath and lit from underneath as well. If they were going to be viewed from underneath, that's great. But if they're going to be lit from overhead or for above natural lighting or have light shining down on them, you handle the surface differently, okay? You kind of get an easy path because you don't have to worry about how they look in unnatural light, and you'll really know the difference. And that's something too with bronze. If they've done a patina on it and put a lot of shadows in it, and then the light shining the wrong way, and now they've got shadows in both directions, it makes them look even worse. They look really bad. And so whenever I'm talking with a potential patron, you know, a customer on a project, and you know, in the cemetery, they're not going to have lights down on the ground because they don't keep stuff lit. But if it's a feature job that's going to go somewheres with like hardscape or in a fountain area or a garden area where they're going to potentially have light shining up on them, I try to think through it and I ask them, because I have to go through and do a lot more work to make sure that stone still looks good in that incorrect light, because it's unnatural, and you got to finish your job in a way that it looks good how and the way it's going to be viewed. And if you're going to default to one or the other, having it perfect from underneath, sunlight's like overwhelming. It wins. Okay, the sun is the whole universe. I mean, the sun is the center of the universe. It really is. Most energy, whatever. When you put this job out there in the sun, and the sun's going to wipe out all kinds of soft detail because there's so much light. The tooling and the roughness and things you either create or don't address, you know, if you create them on purpose, whatever, they're going to be exaggerated with time as they get dirty, because they will hold little bits of dust in the air. They will hold bird manure as they poop it. It flows down and a little bit gets trapped. And they will start to host organic activity with growth and life and, you know, little green plants and everything and little spores or whatever that take hold, lichens and moss and everything. That they will start to, you know, colonize your stone. But you have to make sure that you prepare your stone for the venue that it's going to be, you know, displayed in, presented in. There's one of my huge pet peeves, and I know I'll get old someday, and, you know, like I'm not old now and can tell it because things hurt and whatever, because I'm, you know, almost 60, but there's the people on the TV, and they all light from the bottom because they think it's going to make them look younger because it's going to hide their wrinkles. Okay, I don't know who's advising these people that it looks good, because it looks like they're freaks at Halloween playing dress up. It doesn't. It makes them look weird, like you're holding a flashlight shining up over your face. You know, getting old is getting old, and that unnatural lighting is not beneficial in all circumstances. And so you have to make sure how your finished job is going to look, so that when you get done with it and you put it out there, they don't go, wow, that thing's rough as a cob, man, that's awful. It's really, really rough. Why does it look so rough? It's because there's spotlights down in the ground shining up and showing up all the flaws that you left on that stone. Now, I worked down her nose. Her nose is a lot smaller than it was. It still looks wonky with the light on, but it's a lot smaller than it was. And this eye is still a lot more massier than this eye. But I'm working her chin down, and I think with the light off, she keeps looking more and more real. You're gonna question yourself through the process. Okay, you're gonna have doubts and say, "Wow, I might have screwed this up." Trust the process. Just keep going forward and do it the way you're supposed to do. As long as your foundation points are good and don't move, and you use the point machine fine, and you cut it and you don't knock stuff off. I have not yet had an uh-oh moment where I put the point machine on the stone and dropped it, the needle, and then had, like, you know, a gap under the needle before it even started, and that'll happen. And you'll get that feeling deep down, and that knot, and that, oh no, sick feeling while you're learning. It'll happen. So that's why I tell you just to be careful and go slow. The speed will come. You know, speed will come with time. You want to go careful and go slow. And so far, nothing that I've done has had that big uh-oh moment where I set my machine up and went it on the stone and pushed the needle down, and it just went clunk right to the end, and then there was nothing but a whole bunch of space under it where the stone was missing. Okay, so but yeah, seeing the low light, her face is looking way more like a regular face. And as I haven't, okay, and I pointed out, you know, a couple of clips ago about marking her arm, okay, marking her wrist. I'm not going to cut those now. Those are things that I want to address at the right time. I want to get her head together, get her really well situated so that her head makes sense. And then I'm going to balance that with this, if I have to do a little more on her hip or leg to move anything or whatever. All of that's going to come together. It needs to come together at the same time so it all lands right where it is. I don't want to say, well, this arm doesn't look right now, and I go ahead and cut that off and then realize the arm was fine. this is what was wrong with it. And I keep telling you that. The reason I keep telling you that is because you are going to have these moments where you think, that's the problem, I got to fix it, and you're diligent and you're taking care of it, you do everything, you fix it, and then you have that big knot, like I told you, clump, the needle doesn't fit, or something doesn't look right, and now you can't change it. Okay, don't surrender value, trust the process, take your time, and yeah, see, the worse the light gets, the more you can recognize the contour. At least I can see it on the little display on the camera screen. And her eye is still wonky, but that's still really heavy. I haven't done anything with her cheek, and so I'm going to try to balance that out, because I've got to estimate where that eye is going to be, because this was on the model, it was shifted a little bit, and I don't know any way to avoid that other than practice. If you take literally, well, I mean, and I mentioned this before, the reason you think you look different in pictures, when you see a photograph, you go, I don't look like that, man. I know what I look like. I look in the mirror every day. I know what I look like. I'm brushing my teeth and shaving, and I know exactly what I look like. No, you don't. You're looking at the reverse of you. People see what's really there. The way I look on the camera is different than the way I look, because the camera's not reversing. The mirror is. If you take your artwork, your sculpture, your head, your face, and you reverse it, put on your computer, camera, whatever technology you've got, and reverse it. You'll see that one eye is way down and the other one's up, or the side of the mouth is way down, and it looks weird. You can hold a mirror up to your work and look at it, and you'll see how crooked it is right away. And it's hard to, because you'll, look right, see left, and all these other little sayings, whatever. It's really hard to get a perfectly balanced face and get it right. And I've got a fixture with 90 degrees to try to line everything up, and you can look in sight. You'll still, there'll be discrepancies in the depth and the height of the profile, where one side's deeper than the other, because you're trying to put some emotion into it. Instead of emotion, you're just rotating the plane of the face instead of actually putting emotion in the face. All those things will happen. The only way you can get around it is to practice. And so I've got to move this side of her face up to balance it with the other side. I've been doing it on the clay, getting it, so the clay looks better. Once I get her pretty close to where it's time for me to start tuning her up, direct carving, I'll bring the clay back out and look at it, because I've still got it. That's why I like the silicone molds, that I can do, and I can save the clay. And then after it's been hidden from me for days or whatever, a week or two, while I'm pulling the mold, I pull it off, and it's like, oh, wow, man, I can see how crooked that is. And now I can go back and I can fix it. And so that's what I've been doing, is I've been fixing the clay a little bit, trying to get it right, to have a better perspective on what I want to do from the plaster. But the fine tuning, when I start doing the accent and really trying to develop the flesh of the face and the final detail of the face, I'm going to hang up the pictures that they sent me for a likeness, and I'm going to gear more towards that than I am the plaster of the clay, because ultimately that's the goal. So, but it's, said there's a lot to it. It isn't just whiz bang, whip it out. You can, and it'll look like a garden statue. It won't be particularly great. Probably it'll look all cockeyed and crooked, and things won't match up. But sometimes that's all you got to do. That's all they're paying for. But yeah, she's coming good. I like the way, that side of her face over here, this side. I like the way the side of her face looks on the camera. It's coming together pretty well. So, yeah, see that? Now, this is still, she's still heavy, but I'm really pleased with how her head is rotated. She's got her, her hair's still really big, her head's thick, her neck is thick, which makes her look short. I still got extra material on top of her shoulders that needs to be blended off, and that's making her neck look short and everything. But you can really see that she's starting to have some posture where she's moving. She's got nice mobility, nice, there's a vibrancy to it. She's not just standing there trapped in the stone like she got caught in a freeze or something. And, you know, and this side over here on her face, I don't know where my finger is, over here is still not right, but this, her right side is coming together pretty well. And as that arm thins up and that hand thins up, she's, and she'll thin up in general a lot. It's going to make her look really good. She's moving, so pretty happy with that. I think she's moving better than the plaster. I think she's got more articulation. So, but yeah, let's check the time on this and see where we're at. Well, I think we can wrap this video up. Got enough time on this, so we'll just start on the next one. My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculptor Studio with the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.